want to say something about a professor who taught me a great deal about writing. His name was E. David Cronon. He was my major professor at the University of Wisconsin. I had come to Wisconsin because I knew it had a marvelous history department. I went there because I wanted to work with a man named Merle Curti, who was one of the founders of both intellectual history and social history. But he was turning 70, and he said, I went to talk to him about this. He was just too elderly to become my mentor. And so he handed me over to a much younger man in his late 30s who had just joined the department. As it turned out, Merle Curti lived to be well into his 90s. And so that would have worked out. And he was a wonderful, wonderful person. But I went to work for E. David Cronon in his late 30s. He had just taught at Yale for 7 years, 1 year at Nebraska, and then was hired to come back to Wisconsin, where he had earned his PhD as well. So he came to Wisconsin in 1962, the year I started graduate school. I took his seminar every semester, and I took additional courses from him as well. And I wrote both my master's thesis and my PhD dissertation under his direction. He was very, very helpful. Also, I mentioned, I think, that I went to Denison University in Ohio, where I had two writing teachers. One taught me to write prose and the other poetry. And they had a very positive influence on me as well. But I think when I got to Wisconsin, I still was not a very good writer. I needed a certain amount of mentoring. And E. David Cronon provided that. And this is how he did it. And it had a very big impact on me. He took my first chapter of my dissertation and marked it up incredibly, markings everywhere, suggestions, criticisms, lots of very helpful information. And I took seriously his critique of my chapter. I learned a lot from it that I could generalize to my writing of other chapters. And so he had an amazing influence on me. This also pertained to my later books, to the writing of the textbook. I also decided that one way to interest readers in what I was doing was to begin every chapter with a vignette, a story that sort of addressed the major themes of that chapter. And so I did this for the Race Riot book and also for other books that I wrote, including our History of the U.S., A People and a Nation. Some of the other authors on that project, again, there were 6 of us, were Mary Beth Norton at Cornell, Tom Patterson at the University of Connecticut, Howard Chudakoff at Brown, my very, very good friend David Katzman at Kansas, and myself. So we were very happy to have made this contribution to the teaching and writing of American history. I was also very pleased, and I think this had to do with my first book, Race Riot. I was elected a fellow in the Society of American Historians, which recognizes literary excellence in the writing of history and biography. So I was quite pleased to be elected to this organization and have been a member of it ever since.